whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good evening to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date with the headlines. Ports and airports across the country are on high alert after a former soldier charged with terror offences escaped from Wandsworth Prison. A nationwide manhunt is ongoing. Our Home and Security editor Mark White has more.
As authorities try to determine how Daniel Khalif managed to escape from Wandsworth Jail, there is now a nationwide manhunt. At ports and airports right around the country, there are additional security personnel and long queues as they check everyone leaving the country. GB News understands that Khalif escaped by clinging to the underside of a delivery truck leaving Wandsworth Prison. Prison authorities, we understand, were alerted within minutes of his disappearance.
Questions remain, however, about why Khalif was being held in a Category B prison in Wandsworth rather than a high-security facility. The Shadow Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says the government's lost control of the justice system.
I think the government has very serious questions to answer. We know that the criminal justice system, after 13 years of Tory government, is in a state of disrepair. We know that there are huge problems with prisons and prison places in particular. And as we've seen, there is now a terror suspect on the loose, having escaped from Wandsworth Prison. So big questions for the government to answer. Frankly, Rishi Sunak needs to get a grip.
Sir Keir Starmer's claimed cowboys are running the country as he criticised Rishi Sunak's handling of the school's concrete crisis. Earlier, he visited one of the many schools which have been ordered to close fully or partially. During Prime Minister's questions, the Labour leader accused the government of cutting corners and carrying out botch jobs. But the Prime Minister responded by saying the government has acted decisively in the face of new information. The US Secretary of State's announced a new package of aid for Ukraine worth more than $1 billion. or £800 million. It comes on the day 17 people died and dozens more were injured by a Russian missile strike in the east of the country. The attack hit a busy market in the city of Kostyantynivka in the Donetsk region near the front lines. Hours earlier, Antony Blinken paid a surprise visit to Kyiv to reaffirm US support for Ukraine. The largest electric vehicle site in the UK, electric vehicle charging site in the UK, I should say, will be opened in Birmingham tomorrow. The GigaHub, based at the NEC campus, will have 180 charging points, including 30 super fast bays. The number of public chargers has more than tripled in the last 4 years to more than 45,000 by last month. That's according to the Treasury. The Rolling Stones have announced their first album in nearly 2 decades. Mick Jagger says Hackney Diamonds will be released on the 20th of October. It will feature guest performances from Lady Gaga, Stevie Wonder and Bill Wyman, the former Stones bass player. The surviving trio, during the press conference, paid tribute to the band's longtime drummer Charlie Watts, who died 2 years ago. His final tracks, recorded with the band, will also be on the album. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and joining me to lay down some home truths about Thursday's newspaper stories is menopausal comedian Lewis Schaefer, and making a welcome return, even though his hair makes me very jealous, Darius Davis. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I am... What if I am menopausal?
Well, I meant more that your audience is menopausal.
Oh, OK. I'll take what I can get in terms of audiences.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely... Look, mate, you've got an audience. That's me being jealous of you, essentially. What's your audience, Darius? Have you got an audience?
Menopausal, too.
Are you talking about your mum, basically?
Yeah, my mum.
Fair enough. Right, well, look, let's go straight into the front pages, then. We are going to have the Daily Mail. Terrorist suspect flees jailed, strapped under delivery van. Telegraph, terror suspect escapes jail under lorry. Both going with two very different narratives there, lorry or delivery van. Guardian, undercover police officer deceived woman into 19-year relationship. Express, PM, I'll make UK best place in the world to do business. No, you won't. iNews, mortgage relief on way, hints bank chief. And finally, the Daily Star, it's a bit hot, and those were your front pages. Now, kicking off an in-depth look into those front pages with the Daily Mail, Lewis.
Yeah, I don't know which one is more important. Terrorist suspect flees jail strapped under delivery van, or whether the Rolling Stones are... I don't even know if they'll even be delivered.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Look, Iranian spies are always escaping. Yeah. It's just one of those things that happen. Rolling Stones putting out a new album. There's only a handful of those, surely.
Was this guy an Iranian spy?
Yes, he was.
Listen, all I've got to say on this is that Danny Kaye, as I call him, is a good guy. He's a nice guy, and he's...
Why, because he's one of...
Daniel Abad... Listen, he's not staying with me. That's not true. Are you sure? Wherever he is.
Oh, yeah, Khalif. Are you sure? I'm just looking at the photo there. That's from another newspaper, but that could be you.
Listen,
have you got a wig on or something?
Danny Kaye is a cool guy. And
Yeah.
You think it...
You know the biggest shock that's going to come from is when he goes to try and collect his money from the Iranian government, and they get him in like pita bread and stuff, and he's got no money.
Well, they're not going to give him any money because what did the guy do? He put a fake bomb in a military installation. So is that worthy of getting any kind of praise?
Look, he's obviously not... like a leading candidate from the Iranian spy school. Yeah. They send those to Israel and America.
The best ones.
The best ones. Yeah. 007, Iranian 007 goes to those countries.
Yeah, they don't end up in Wandsworth. Yeah. Wandsworth prison. It's not the best Iranian
We're getting
spies.
the run to the litter. But to be fair, they must be pretty happy with him. He did some sort of James Bondy stuff. He escaped on a lorry. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think British people love escape movies. The classic escape movies are always British movies, some of the great ones. And The Great Escape was one. And I think...
is that the plot, is it?
Yes, escape from a prison thing, and then there's another one, escape from Colditz, and you know these are escape movies. I think as British people, they like the idea of like sneaking one away from somebody.
But what about when our enemies sneak away from us?
Maybe that's why this is news.
Jamal Bond.
Yeah.
Well, makes a difference, not letting an Iranian leave the country as opposed to letting them just come in.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Hang on.
Very good. On that note, what does the Telegraph go with then, Darius?
Well, Telegraph lead with a picture of a very handsome man, but it's the same guy from the other story.
Are you sure he's Iranian? Because he seems to have two eyebrows.
Yeah, no, that is it. Maybe he's a mix.
That's how good a spy he is. He plucks in the middle.
He's dedicated himself to the role. So they also lead with that story, but interestingly, there's two other stories on their front page. One of them is a climate change expert has overhyped his findings, which I, for one, am shocked that a man being funded to do a report on climate change comes up with the findings they want. And also, they lead with another story where that Great Ormond Street have said that you're not allowed, their staff aren't allowed to use gendered language, so you can't say boys or girls in Great Ormond Street now.
Which we've seen various incarnations of that story. But this climate change one is interesting. This climate scientist... this is what a lot of people suspected. This is him getting, I believe, a thing about the wildfires, an article about the wildfires into nature. And he basically says, look, to get it into, I deliberately basically said it was only about climate change, as opposed to what have been these other proven factors, which are people setting off the fires and also bad forestry management.
Yeah, what makes this thing so funny is he's actually admitting that he kind of lied to get the thing into Nature, which is, I think, the largest science magazine and the science publication in the entire world, I think. I've read that. I don't know whether that's true, but I have read that.
Certainly, if they publish it, you can't tell if it's true.
Yeah. So he's basically giving two fingers up to Nature magazine, because then Nature, he's basically throwing Nature under the bus a bit.
Well, basically, they stopped his funding, so now it's like, well, now I'm going to tell the truth until someone pays me differently.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah,
what it is.
That's my reading of it.
He's going for the big oil.
Yeah, he's going for
like,
that.
come on, hire me.
And the truth is, people are beginning to realize that, climate isn't the thing. Just like COVID's not a thing, climate change isn't
I have to say,
thing.
it's not that climate change isn't a thing, but it's the impact. As he says here, it's the narrative. There's no possibility of providing any kind of counter-narrative, or even more so, it seems to be what he's saying is they are constantly pushing the most excessive narrative. That's what they seem to be doing.
Yeah, they're lying.
Well,
because if there are other reasons why these fires are happening. Not just climate change, and you don't include them. That's a lie by omission. Nature is lying. We're being lied to. Every day we're being lied to by these publications, by the mainstream
But the only person
media.
telling us the truth is Lewis Schaefer.
Yes!
I mean...
telling us his truth.
No, it's not just his truth. If here's a guy who has accused Nature of lying, the publication Nature, they lied because he knew he could not put in that these wildfires were set by individuals or because the forests were not being tended properly.
I know, but Darius, that doesn't mean, of course, that everybody is lying, that every climate change scientist has lied through the last 40 years.
The problem is similar with COVID. Like, obviously it existed, obviously climate change is happening, but when you deliberately withhold certain information, people start getting sceptical, and when they're getting lectured to by celebs flying over on a private jet saying, hey, you're the problem, when you can barely afford to, you walk everywhere because you can't even afford public transport, and they're saying, no, you're the one who's causing all the climate change. It's like, no one's we see it for what it is.
We see it for what it is.
This is what I think. If only there was some kind of, I don't know, news media outlet where maybe we could just openly talk about this stuff and see where it takes. I don't know. Well, stick with me. Moving on to The Guardian, Lewis.
The Guardian. This is one of the most amazing stories, and it's on the front page of the Guardian. I mean, you'll have to read it because it's so detailed.
You're telling people buy The Guardian.
I'm actually telling them because this is going to be a movie. This is The Mystery of Martin Gare. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, The Mystery of Martin Gare.
Obviously
one of the great escape movies.
Never heard of it.
Which was an undercover police officer deceived a woman into a 19 19-year relationship. He was a kind of undercover cop. He had a fake name. He told people he wasn't. He told this woman
he was a businesswoman.
He was a businessman. He lied to a woman in order to be with her. He was with her for 19 years.
They have a kid?
They have a kid, and he adopted her kid. So a stepkid, right? And he wanted to marry her after like 16 years of being together. He was so in love with her, but she was not happy. But the point is...
So you're blaming her?
I'm blaming her. It's like the same way all women think that men lie to them. The mother of my children, she used to say to me, Lewis, you're not the same man I met in New York. She would say this to me. And I would say, I'm not in New York, I'm in Peckham. I'm like a shark on the bottom of a boat.
So she lied to you about Peckham. She was like, yeah, Peckham's like New York.
Yeah, she lied to me. She told me I was going to be a big star in this country.
She got it right, but only sort of 20 years later.
Oh, you think this is
I mean, what do you
stuff?
think about this, Darius? And also, there's information, I think, that the IOPC actually knew about this. She didn't know, but they knew about 7 years ago and didn't tell her.
Well, this is genuinely a crazy story. Obviously, my initial reaction is officer deceived woman into a 19-year relationship. It's like, that's just a normal relationship.
Yes.
But it's so, like Lewis said, it's so in-depth. It's like, you know, it's 5 pages long. But she was happy with it and she didn't know it was happening. Then the police told her he was undercover.
Finally.
Finally. But she didn't have a clue, and he'd already left the police. So there was no need for them to rat them out. It was like being found out you've been cheating on Facebook like 2 years after the fact. Like, give up, let me be.
Oh, do you think so? 2 years is your limit? Is
I don't know. I just think this guy's committed to the role. He's settled for 19 years. He's had a kid with you.
Yes.
What more do you want?
He is a real method actor. He's taken it the full...
But can I tell you what the real story probably is? Because there's always a real story, because all these stories are a bunch of
Well, the real story is, where did she think she was, what is he working at?
No, the real story is... Ka-ching. She's thinking, I get some money out of this. I just got to pretend that I don't like the guy, that I'm angry at the guy.
Unlike your ex-wife. Right, finally, we're going to have the Daily Star, Darius.
The Daily Star reports with "It's a bit hot," and it's a picture of a donkey in sunglasses licking an ice cream.
Someone's going overboard on the old Photoshop.
Although, interestingly, Tesco have got a deal on Magnums, 3 for £3.25, but using club card, £2.
Wow.
That's just a bargain. That's what I'm
some
saying.
good product placement there, isn't it? They paid that money there.
Tesco paying me.
And Magnum is 249 calories, and I think it's about 25 grams of carbs.
Okay. But it has been particularly hot.
It has been a hot day today.
It has been a hot day.
Are we blaming climate change for that?
No, we're blaming Nature magazine.
Yeah.
OK, then. Right, that's the front pages. Give it a good seeing to. Come back and join us in a second for the UK. It's rejoining the EU.
Yay.
Just joking. Or am I? See you there.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world. The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. My job is to take you through Thursday's newspapers. This is Lewis Schaefer. His job is to stop me. And this is Darius Davis, and he is here to bring in the under-50s.
Yeah.
First up is an easy one from the Times for you, Lewis.
Well,
to trans or not to trans?
That is the question. According to the Times, Rishi Sunak set to drop legal plans to bar transitioning in schools. So schools are for the young people. And
well done. Thank you for that first step in the story.
But it's not transition. No one's transitioning. They're not having any surgery there. But
well, they're socially transitioning.
Socially. So they're saying, is it okay for kids to come out at school when they're 15 or 10 or whatever age they are?
Primary school they're talking about here.
Primary school, and to be what they. Whatever, they're born one thing and they're going to be another thing.
Basically, to pretend that they're the opposite sex.
And they were going to pass some sort of law that said to them that kids couldn't transition unless there was psychiatric help or whatever it was. But listen, can I finish?
Okay, yeah.
But
can you start?
But there's been pressure within the Rishi Sunak organization.
It's called the government.
Like government not to go ahead with this because it reminds too many people of what happened with Margaret Thatcher and Section 28. I wasn't here at that time.
No.
But it got a lot of pushback. Yeah,
you coming to this country was what stopped it, wasn't it? Well, I mean, this is it's a very interesting story. They've been talking about this. Obviously, there's massive confusion because if a child transitions at home, first of all, what was happening was that children were going in and transitioning at school, socially transitioning, where they said suddenly you can call me Bob and whatever, and the schools weren't telling the parents. So that is not what we're talking about here. That's still out. But they're saying with the parents' permission, schools do have to go along with it. What they haven't fully tied down, it seems to be, is this idea of compelled speech. Because if a child comes on and says, actually, I'm they, them, and then there's a teacher who doesn't believe in that because it's essentially a religion, it's an ideology, do they then have to go along with it, or will their job be threatened? And that's what's not particularly being tied down here.
Yeah.
And makes it that much more confusing.
So this Keegan woman, the woman who cursed the other day, who's head of the Department of Education, whatever it is, education.
For now.
She said that they wanted to let the kids do what they want to do because they didn't want to be seen to be on the wrong side of history, which is basically them saying, we've given up, transitioning is coming, there's no stopping it.
Well, no, the point is there is something stopping it. This is an ideology, and the danger is that by encouraging this, and also you're having like these schools who have been taught that there's 100 different genders, and pushing through this ideology, as they get confused, they then want to go on the hormones, and then they are on the path to medical transition, and their lives essentially can be really destroyed from that point, because a lot of them then detransition later on.
Yes, but that's not. It's going on the path.
Yeah, but this is that's like saying, allow them to have like chocolate cigarettes or whatever it is because they're not. But
they were cool. I had them when I was a kid, and I don't smoke. But I do think, I think the way to kind of get around this now is, like you say, it's kind of like an ideology, a religion. I think we should just separate. Like, there should be this is an LGBTQ plus school. If you want to adhere to that, you can send your kids there. And this is like normal, regular school. So it's like you've got Jewish schools, you've got Catholic schools, and you've got Muslim schools, and you can choose where you send your children, and you can choose to be.
Unfortunately, some people don't have that option. It's an interesting idea. We've got to move on. I just want to say that I am fully aware that the chocolate cigarette analogy was properly rubbish. OK. What's this in Thursday's Times, Darius? It seems like the UK are once again trendsetters.
Yeah, that's right. The EU members seek UK Rwanda model to fix the asylum crisis. So 1 million migrants are expected to arrive in Europe this year. And there's some pushback within the EU. Surprisingly enough, classic Nazis, Austria broke ranks, demanded that the EU follows the controversial British model of processing claims in Rwanda.
Yeah, when the birthplace of Hitler...
That was a shock.
When they're backing up, going, hey, England have got it right.
But also Denmark, Poland and the Netherlands. And Denmark, actually, they had a similar kind of deal with, like Britain had, so they could implement it, but they retracted it. They went through after the elections. They retracted that.
The Rwanda plan.
Yeah, they got scared, so they pulled up on it. But it's becoming a very divisive issue now. So like Poland and Netherlands are now, campaigning on this in their upcoming elections. Most of the immigrants are from Afghanistan and Syria that are arriving in Europe. So, I mean, if I was Polish, I could understand that, hey, we didn't invade those countries. Why are they coming to our country and, bringing it in here? So, I mean, it's basically people are, like you said, where Britain treads, others follows. So how the tables have turned.
Well, the other thing, Lewis, is that, I mean, we see it every night on the news, and we cover it here, certainly, about people coming over on the boats. But when you look at the numbers that we seem to be going crazy about, compared to 1 million people coming into Europe, I mean, it's a much larger problem over there.
Well, the whole thing, it's just basically Europe, we're part of Europe. Same thing's happening in America. We basically have told the world, just come. We're not going to do anything about it. And what Austria is trying to say is we need some kind of penalty. And what Britain was trying to say is that we need some kind of penalty.
Well, deterrent.
A deterrent, which is we'll send them to a quote-unquote horrible place. But the shocking thing is that the EU signed a deal with Tunisia to pay them €1 billion to keep people out. It's like we're paying people money
and
not to
Tunisia
come.
has a lot of human rights issues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is a hypocrisy, like, we'll drop our morals when it comes to helping ourselves.
It's not just that, it just shows sheer impotency. We're like paying, what is the term called? Blood money, is it?
Paying people off or whatever. But actually, Darius, I did want to ask, this problem is surely going to be getting worse over the coming decades. Assuming that climate change is real, if you read Nature, that's a callback Ofcom, by the way, then we are going to see more movement of people as they are escaping lands that are in drought and whatnot. So the arguments are, like, this needs to be kind of, even though the problem's escalating now, it's going to get even worse, surely.
Well, that is the problem, that as they see it, and the EU countries, like I said, they're pushing more to the right now. They lead because there's too many people coming in. Belgium, traditionally refugee-friendly, refused to provide shelter for single men seeking asylum. So they've been condemned by the Council of Europe and other human rights watchdogs. So it's just like controlled immigration is good, but now there's too much immigration, and people are just descending on the country. And the Europeans are like, they've had enough.
Well, can I just say that I'm really glad that you two got in.
But he's like
born
immigrants.
He's born here. All right, The Guardian next. And Lewis, I don't want to give your elderly fan base a heart attack, but we're rejoining the EU.
In one little sense, we're rejoining the EU. There's this $85 billion scheme called the Horizon Science Research Program, where all of Europe has 85 billion pounds, and it gets divided out, and we put $2 billion in, and we got back $1 billion. So we thought that was a really good deal, right? I think it was $950 million. And it's a science, it's like all these miscellaneous science programs. You know, they're all ridiculous, these science programs. Okay. They're all going to be involved with climate change or COVID, or like there's one thing.
Maybe like helping climate change, maybe finding the next technological development that's going to cure everyone and make us billions of pounds.
Yeah, and climate change. With climate change, no. It's just about spending money. There's this one program called the Novel Plasma Generator that could be used in cancer treatment. They won't even admit what causes cancer, so it's impossible.
Okay. All right,
At least I admit that cancer exists.
Yeah, fine. Well, that's a big step for you. You've really grown over the last year. Darius, surely this is a good thing. Even the most ardent Brexiteer could look at this and go, actually, yes, this is good.
The actual scheme's meant to be you put $2 billion in, but you basically get that money back. So it's kind of money, you're not really spending money, but you're involved in this interesting scientific research. But because we left the EU, we're not getting as much back as we've done. So they've renegotiated the deal so that it works better for us. So actually, it's a win for Britain.
Well, it is a win, except for the fact that we used to put in 2 billion and we used to get 2.5 billion. So we've lost 500
Yeah, but now we're going to try and get back up to those levels.
But now
That's the win. Now we've negotiated to say, hey, you can pay us what you paid us.
So was I wrong with the numbers?
No, it's fine. Any concern in the Mirror, Lewis, that this move might antagonise our best friends, Russia? We're going to go straight to
there. There's
Wagner, Max.
Wagner. Is it Wagner or Wagner? The Russia's Wagner Group to be declared terrorist organization by UK government, and this is that group that was led by that guy who got killed.
Prigozhin.
Well, maybe he didn't get killed, and maybe his plane crashed.
They're writing about it in Nature.
And basically what this group was, and still is a tool of Russian imperialism. It's like, it's Russia's military force around the world, but it has a maximum deniability from Putin, because it was these other guys. So Putin can say, it's not me.
They're drinking vodka. Yes, but it just happens.
They're speaking Russian.
Yes, they call me every day.
And so it's along with Hamas and Boko Haram, they're saying that these people are terrorists.
Well, let's ask Darius, why, arguably, first of all, as Lewis said, Prigozhin, he's dead now.
Well, I guess that's why.
Well,
That's why they were waiting to see if the coup worked, and then they would have been freedom fighters. But since it failed, now they're terrorist organisation.
But it's slightly ridiculous to do this now when arguably their power's on the wane. We don't even know if they're going to survive as a group. Whereas arguably something like the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who are around the world doing these terrorist acts.
Good guys.
Yeah.
Are they not?
And they are not prescribed at all.
Yeah.
So it seems a ridiculous thing
I
to
think
do
the
this.
reason why now it is by this failed coup, and Putin said to the Wagner Group, "You belong to us now." And as soon as he said that, it basically associated the two totally together, and because we're at war with them, with the Ukraine.
Okay. Or the other narrative might be that the Tories are just massively behind.
Yeah, I think
that might be that one as well. Right, we're at the halfway tipping point to madness. Make sure you come back for the end of procreation. It turns out the internet can actually be bad for you, and China bans clothes. See you in a sec.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A warm, sultry night to come for many of us. More hot sunshine into Thursday. A small chance of thunderstorms developing towards western and southwestern areas in particular, as low pressure sends heat and humidity northwards across the UK. Now, any thunderstorms that do develop will be very hit and miss, quite isolated, mostly towards western areas overnight. But there is the chance that these thunderstorms will contain frequent flashes of lightning, so they could be quite visible in the night sky where they do occur. Some low cloud creeping into the east. It's a warm night for many, mid to high teens, and in some places no colder than 20 or 21 Celsius. So some patchy fog about first thing Thursday, some of this misty low cloud in the east, but that will tend to retreat to North Sea coasts. And for many, it's a fine day, but we've still got that potential thundery activity moving north into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland by the afternoon. It's a very warm or hot day in places, 29 to 32 Celsius in the south, 28 Celsius for northern Scotland. So the heat is extensive across the UK, and it's a warm start to Friday. Again, some of that misty low cloud in the east. Again, the threat of thundery showers towards the west and southwest, but otherwise it's just a case of sunny skies, and the temperatures continue to rise up to 33 Celsius in places by Saturday.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, thank you for that therapy session, Lewis. Welcome back to Headliners and straight into Thursday's Sun. Darius, is this the death of love? It's a phrase that I came up with myself, and I have trademarked that phrase, death of love. Have you ever heard it before?
That's my phrase.
No, mate. I've been doing death of love for 20 years now.
I'll just do the headline. Scientists grow human embryo in the lab without sperm, egg, or a womb. So scientists have created a synthetic human embryo that can survive outside the womb using stem cells. The embryo model was made in a lab without the need for sperm or eggs and behaved like the real deal after 2 weeks, Israeli scientists said. So we're literally playing God right now.
Yeah.
Which is good because it's done in the Holy Land, so it's the right place for them to be doing it. But this is you can more or less now just magic a baby out of nowhere, which obviously I mean, this is
That's
so
cool.
dystopian.
Isn't that what happened with Jesus, kind of?
Yeah, basically, but how dystopian? I mean, there's so many, like, at the moment, it's just presented, oh, this is how, you know, we're only 14 days is a limit, and it's not an actual embryo, it's an embryo model, so it's kind of like vaping compared to smoking.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's...
Like chocolate cigarettes, bringing that one,
cigarettes,
bringing that one
that's
back.
the callback.
It works now.
But this throws up so many ethical questions, and then deeper than that, more dystopian questions, because now, you know, you can just create a baby out of nowhere, and we can just create life. This is the first step to that. It's just.
Well, Lewis is shaking his head there. I mean, do you think there are
They
no more?
didn't create a baby. They created a 14-day embryo.
Well,
It's
that's the start.
which has like maybe 28 cells or something.
Okay.
It's hardly a baby.
But can it continue to develop?
No. It says it mimics. It says it releases the same hormones. It's not a real embryo. It's like an embryo. It's not even an embryo. It's just a mass of cells.
I'll be honest. I don't even know what an embryo is, but that's not the point, right? The point is, that this is the start, and it's not got the right hormones now, but they could make it to have the right hormones.
Well,
so that one can't. But it's like this is today. In 2 years' time, they'll be able to set it on its way.
In 2 years' time, maybe I'll have a career in comedy. I mean, really, this is one of those, I call these camp stories. It could be, maybe, possibly.
It's not could be. It's happening.
Yeah. It's
happening today.
It's happening. First of all, they're scientists, so they're natural liars. Yeah. These are the lyingest people on earth.
Okay, thank you very much there, Lewis. The Independent next, and suddenly everything you say makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Oh, but this is about the internet.
Yeah.
Study discovers link between the internet use and dementia. This is another complete non-story, because they basically looked at people as they were getting older, and they said, who's getting dementia? And they find out that it makes it seem like there's a link between internet use causing dementia. Yeah. But the truth is, according to this study that they did by the University of Michigan's Health and Retirement Study, is that people who use the most internet had the least dementia, right? And the people who used it not at all had the most dementia.
Okay, now you have literally just given me dementia from that explanation. Darius,
but also
can you explain
then it says, so this is actually really weird story to understand. It does give me dementia as well. It says, however, the researchers have pointed out a caveat. There appeared to be a correlation between excessive internet usage and the development of dementia as well. Yeah. The internet stops dementia and gives you dementia if you use it too much.
So this story is so poorly written, and it's in the Independent, which is not even a newspaper. We shouldn't even cover this. I'm embarrassed.
But that's why, because it's on the internet, which is why the person we've spent too much time on.
Why don't we include the news from the New York Times? They have a website, or the Wall Street Journal.
GB News, mate.
Yeah, but this is
GB.
This is called headliners. There's no headliner in.
Well, there is a headline there.
If you go to the shop, you will not find the Independent.
Okay, there is a headline there, and the headline is basically totally wrong. Essentially, what the story is saying is, if you use the internet as you're getting older, it will help to stave off dementia.
No, they are not saying that.
They don't say that because they don't provide any proof. They say, all right,
they are not saying if you use it. That's causation. This is a Carl story. It's about correlation. It's about association. It's about risk of. It's about linking. It's saying.
How many other words do you got there?
I made it an acronym. It's called Carl. I think
very good.
He said that to me just before we went on.
He was like,
I say it every single show.
Watch me work this word into my next story.
Because this is one of those things, the Louis Schaefer bingo thing. I think it's
congratulations. Lewis, the Independent has a story about China. About China not wanting to hurt people's feelings. Perhaps they might start with the Uyghurs.
Yes, and the thing about China is that they're banning clothes that hurt feelings of the Chinese nation, of the Chinese people, of the Chinese state. So it's like the state has feelings.
Yes.
Right? And that's very scary when a state has feelings. But basically it comes down to Xi Jinping, and he's losing control over his country. His country is he's losing.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Darius, surely this is a sign of this kind of stuff backfires. When you try and stomp down on freedom to that level, even to the point of what people wear.
You know what? We're kind of looking at this and we're laughing. This can never happen in this country. So here's an example they gave. A woman was detained last year in a city near Shanghai for wearing a kimono, right? As that was a traditional Japanese attire that's offensive to Chinese, right? So we're like, that's funny. Look, they make... But here, we do exactly the same. We say, that's cultural appropriation. You can't wear that kimono.
Yeah.
It would be the same thing. So we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it with under a different wording. We're saying, be safe, cultural appropriation. That's offensive to us. It's exactly the same thing. Obviously, it's a bit... they're probably, saying you can't wear, rubbish clothes like Lewis wears, but that is offensive to my feelings. But...
Is he serious? I'm wearing this tie is a Zenga.
How much did that cost?
If you go to Google it, it's about £100 tie.
Okay.
I mean, I got it in a charity shop, but that doesn't mean this.
Right. Finally, in this section, The Guardian gives us a reason, Darius, to take the bus.
Well, yeah, so the headline is, from sex life to politics, car driver data grab presents privacy nightmare, says studies. So basically, all these car manufacturers are now grabbing your data. So Nissan includes sexual activity in the data it collects, and Kia notes that it can collect information about your sex life in their privacy policy.
That sounds like a sort of an advert, isn't it, for the car, in that they're saying, if you buy a Kia or a Nissan, you will get to have sex.
Well, no. So imagine being called a virgin by your car. Bullied by your car. It's like, you're a virgin. Yeah, I know, I'm driving a Kia. Obviously, I'm a virgin, right? How is this a thing? But this is just like more and more, they're taking all your information that we just give, we click on the terms and conditions, but it needs... But here's what's interesting, right? Not just joking, Kia privacy policy states it may process special categories of data, including information about your race or ethnicity, religious or philosophical beliefs, sexual orientation, sex life, and political opinions.
Wow.
Why does your car need to know who you vote for? Why does your car need to know who you sleep with?
Well, it's whether you veer to the left or right, I guess.
But what's funny is, like, Tesla has like cameras inside the car, and they're watching you with these cameras. So it used to be you used to have to drive to some secluded dogging location, and now you can just go.
Speaking from experience,
you can just go in the car and you know that somebody's.
Well, this is it. Last year, this information came out that a lot of Tesla workers had sort of downloaded this footage of people naked or in their garages and whatnot. I mean, it is terrifying how much information. You are right, of course, Darius. Is like, why would they need all of this stuff? It's because they want to make more money out of us. Now, something like Facebook, where they do the same kind of data harvesting, arguably it's a free service, and that's how they make them a good chunk of their money. When you're paying, tens of thousands of pounds for a car, you would hope that they had made their money.
They can turn off your car. They can turn off your socks. Everything's a subscription. Everything's not yours to own. You don't pay your road tax. Your Tesla will drive you to the government agency to buy. It's too much. This Internet of Things. I remember when it came out, it was funny. You did a joke about it. But now the more and more you see, you're connected at every point. You're monitored. You're seen. You're tracked. Right. And if you say the wrong things, like, sorry, your car's not working because you misgendered someone, now you can't get to work. Now you can't vote. It's like, this is information car companies have no right. Incidentally, the only good thing actually about that is interesting is the only company that who will delete your information was Renault and Dacia, because they're owned by the same company, and that's because they come under European law. GDPR, so they have to delete it. Otherwise, all these will collect your information, and that's it. Done.
Well, we need to move back into the EU.
Don't you think you should?
No, we're going to go. That's all for this section, but coming up in the final part, we've got the origin of elbows, eating elephants, and women need to stop having sex with men, if only. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners and kicking off with Thursday's Express. Lewis, isn't this how you came over here?
Yes, good. Thank you for saying that. Man arrested in U.S., now off the coast of U.S., trying to cross the Atlantic to London in human-sized hamster wheel. This is in the Express. And it just shows that at least the Americans are doing something about Britain's migrant crisis.
Oh, yeah, joining in.
Yeah,
what, like stopping them coming over here?
They're stopping. That's a proper joke.
Yeah.
One joke a night. Anyway, he's a nutcase. He's a nutcase. He's tried 3 other times to have this kind of hamster wheel.
Why is he a nutcase? Because he's choosing to come over here? Is that what you're saying?
No, because he's tried 3 times. This is his 4th time, and each time they keep on stopping him. And each time he says there's a bomb in my hamster wheel.
He didn't want to get bored.
That's the name of your Edinburgh show. There's a bomb in my hamster wheel.
And the Coast Guard is stopping him. Yeah. And he's got one of those names of people like you.
It sounds like he's Iranian, Reza Baluchi, 44.
Do you think he's just escaped? He's probably their version.
Yeah.
He's probably their defunct spy as well, trying to escape. I think the funny thing also about this, he says he's trying to raise money for the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
But he's probably cost so much money to the Coast Guard because it was like a standoff for a couple of days.
You know what I want to know is the journey is 4,500 miles, and he was found 70 miles off the coast. So how long did that take him? I want to kind of work out how long he envisioned the journey would have taken.
Yeah,
I wonder how long it did that.
Respect. Well, good luck for the next try. Yeah. Some science news next in the Metro. Darius, care to elbow your way into it?
Yes, human elbows evolved to act as brakes, saving our ancestors from death. So they did some research into chimpanzees and monkeys, and apparently elbows, what they're actually meant to be used for is when you're running, you just go on your ground and you skid like that. And that's a big new development that's come out from researchers at Dartmouth College. And they also said that with this newfound information, Goodyear have released a new tyre based on elbows, which will help really slow down cars.
Lewis, did you happen to read the story, or are you making it up?
I did read the story, and not the full story. No one's going to read the full story, something like this. But it has to do with apes. They evolved 20 million years ago, and apes. There used to be 20 major apes. And a lot of them died out when there was a climate change back in the day, when there was no man, and some of them
Okay,
died
no,
out.
that's the story from another day. The story here is that it helps us. They've looked in before about climbing up trees where you need to like this, but when you descend, you extend your thing.
But they also put ties on their elbows.
Okay. Time's next. It seems like eating elephants is a good idea. Lewis, more photos for your Twitter.
Well, this is in the Times, and how eating the elephants forced Stone Age humans to innovate. And what they're saying is, and this is at some university or something, they said.
Oh, the University of something. It's a very prestigious affair.
Well, you know what? Well, it's another one. It's this Mickey Bendor.
It's Tel Aviv Uni.
And she's like famous for all these kind of fakakta stories. But basically what they're saying is, when there were no elephants for them to eat, which they could kill with a brick, simple tools, that man had to get smarter and started develop tools to kill the smaller animals, right? So their brains got bigger. When the truth is, it was eating all that meat that got all those brains so smart. And the human brain has lost about 15% of its volume in the last 10,000 years since we've started to eat grains. You can look that up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I want to sort of try this now and see. I'm going to use this very blunt tool to kill this big elephant over here, and then I'll use this little...
I was scared for a second.
Fair enough. Daily Star now with an article from Lewis's ex-wife.
Women should stop sex with men. It's extremely problematic and unenjoyable.
That's verbatim, Lewis.
Yeah.
That was in your divorce proceedings, right?
All our partners agree. Feminist academic Holly Lawford-Smith says women having sex with men is problematic and 90% of women don't enjoy it. But the men do, and that's what counts. So, of course, a joke. Heterosexual women should stop having sex with men because it's extraordinarily male-centered. The bulk of the time in penetrative sex is spent on him like masturbating.
Good morning, everybody tuning in.
I mean, but
No, you can say it.
Is he allowed to say that? Your job is to stop him from going into detail.
I haven't even said anything. I'm just reading what
I know,
it
he's
says.
just reading it.
Basically, a woman who really doesn't like men very much says that other women should also not like men and not have sex with them.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
But no one talks about the fact that there are things that men do that are extremely problematic and unenjoyable. So maybe men should stop fixing women's plumbing or stop mowing their lawns.
Oh, so you see it as a sort of trade-off?
Yeah, well, you know what it is? This is what I'm thinking. We should go on strike, men.
I think no one's...
Not me, I can't fix those things, but they're always looking for guys to do those things.
I think if you're the type of woman who would be influenced by feminist academic Holly Lawford-Smith telling you not to have sex with a man, you would never have sex with a man anyway, so it's irrelevant.
There we go. The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail, terrorist suspect flees jailed, strapped under delivery van. Telegraph, terrorist suspect escapes jail under lorry. Guardian, undercover police officer deceived woman in 19-year relationship. Express, PM, I'll make UK best place in the whole world to do business. iNews, mortgage relief on way, hints, bank chief, hint, hint. And finally, the Daily Star, it's a bit hot. And those are your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Lewis Schaefer and Darius Davis. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Nick Dixon, Paul Cox and Nicholas DeSanto.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A warm, sultry night to come for many of us. More hot sunshine into Thursday. A small chance of thunderstorms developing towards western and southwestern areas in particular as low pressure sends heat and humidity northwards across the UK. Now, any thunderstorms that do develop will be very hit and miss, quite isolated, mostly towards western areas overnight. But there is the chance that these thunderstorms will contain frequent flashes of lightning, so they could be quite visible in the night sky where they do occur. Some low cloud creeping into the east. It's a warm night for many, mid to high teens, and in some places no colder than 20 or 21 Celsius. So some patchy fog about first thing Thursday, some of this misty low cloud in the east, but that will tend to retreat to North Sea coasts. And for many, it's a fine day, but we've still got that potential thundery activity moving north into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland by the afternoon. It's a very warm or hot day in places, 29 to 32 Celsius in the south, 28 Celsius for northern Scotland. So the heat is extensive across the UK, and it's a warm start to Friday. Again, some of that misty low cloud in the east. Again, the threat of thundery showers towards the west and southwest, but otherwise it's just a case of sunny skies, and the temperatures continue to rise up to 33 Celsius in places by Saturday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. There are 5.4 million people of working age in Britain on benefits of one kind or another, 40% of them on sickness benefits. But the government say they're going to do something about it. They're going to put people back to work. But are they really going to do it? And we have a terror suspect on the loose. Yes, an old-fashioned, almost Colditz-style escape from a prison in London. We'll get the update on that. And a proposal's been put forward by a member of Parliament suggesting there should now be a ministry for men. Do we really want yet another subset of a government department? But before all of that, let's get the news from Aaron Armstrong.
Good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. A manhunt's underway after a former soldier charged with terror offences escaped from Wandsworth Prison. 21-year-old Daniel Abed Khalif is accused of leaving fake bombs at a military base while serving with the army. It's understood he escaped from a prison kitchen and clung to the underside of a food delivery van. He was last seen wearing a chef's uniform. UK ports and airports are on high alert, with delays reported as a result of extra security checks. Commander Dominic Murphy, head of the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command, says the police are doing all they can.
We have officers and staff from across London and counter-terrorism policing, so across the country. As is normally the case in these matters, we have published the details of Daniel Khalif to officer colleagues around the country and borders colleagues as well. Our intention here is to try and find him as quick as possible. I believe very strongly that he presents a low risk to the public, but nonetheless, he's an individual who was on remand and should be in custody, and we're doing everything we can to try and find him as quick as possible.
Sir Keir Starmer has claimed cowboys are running the country as he criticised Rishi Sunak's handling of the school's concrete crisis. Ahead of Prime Minister's questions, he visited one of the many schools which have been ordered to fully or partially close. The Labour leader says ministers have been cutting corners and carrying out botched jobs. But the Prime Minister responded by saying the government has acted decisively in the face of new information, calling Sir Keir Starmer Captain Hindsight. 17 people, including a child, have been killed and 32 injured by a Russian missile strike in the city of Kostyantynivka in the east of Ukraine. Ukrainian authorities have posted footage which shows a loud explosion ripping through a busy market. The attack came hours after the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken paid a surprise visit to Kyiv to reaffirm US support for Ukraine. The UK is set to rejoin the European Union's flagship Horizon Science research programme. The government negotiated membership of the £85 billion scheme in the Brexit withdrawal agreement, but it was never ratified because of disputes that emerged over the Northern Ireland Protocol. A report suggests Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will confirm a final deal this week after a 2-year absence. Well, today was the hottest day since 2016, with temperatures reaching 32 degrees at Kew Gardens in London. It could peak on Saturday with 33 degrees forecast, which would be even warmer than Ibiza. If it does, it'll be the UK's hottest day of the year. An amber warning for heat has been issued until Sunday evening. Well, this is GB News on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker to just say play GB News. Now it's back to Nigel.
Good evening. Well, the Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride has said today we've got to do something about the number of people claiming out-of-work benefits. The figure has risen, and it rose very, very sharply during and after the pandemic to 5.4 million. Just think about that. 5.4 million people in this country of working age who are not working but are receiving benefits. And of that number, about 40% of them are on disability benefits of one kind or another. That's about 2.5 million people. Now, what the Minister is saying is, of course, for those who are severely disabled, for those who genuinely cannot work, we will, as a civilised country, give a safety net to those people. But what he's saying is there are plenty of those people who could, especially now with work from home and flexible working, get back into the workplace. And these comments are backed up by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, making the point that actually for many people, going back to work is a good thing. You know, if you're told you're too unwell to work and you're signed off by the GP, well, in many cases, that leads to negative thoughts. It leads to you thinking, somehow, I'm a victim. And I know something about this, because after the aeroplane crash that I was involved in 2010, when the x-rays came back and I had major surgery, the neurosurgeon said, well, Nigel, with your condition, if you want, I can sign you off as partially disabled. And I told him politely where to go. You see, I think for many people, this is about a state of mind. And if government could provide a way to get 1 million people off disability benefits and back into work, that would be an enormous benefit to the country. You see, what we're actually doing is in the very same towns and cities where we've got large numbers of people on out-of-work benefits, we've also got huge job vacancies. And guess how we're filling those vacancies? Well, we're doing it by having immigration numbers of over 1 million people every single year coming in to do those jobs, which, of course, in turn then puts more massive pressure on public services, housing, and pretty much everything else. But there is one disappointment in what Mel Stride has had to say. He doesn't intend for these changes to come in until 2025. They've been in office since 2010, but these reforms won't come in until 2025, which is after the next general election, which I think Labour will probably win. So I put it to you, will these important, vital reforms ever actually happen? Give me your thoughts, farage@gbnews.com. Now, Fazileh Hadi is Head of Policy at Disability Rights UK and joins me down the line. Fazileh, I want to re-emphasise that for those that genuinely are disabled and have no means or way of working, we will be civilised, of course, as a society. But the point I want to make is this. If I go back to 1981, there were 790,000 people in the United Kingdom who had disability rights and benefits accordingly. That figure has rocketed to 2.5 million. And many of the new cases, and it's roughly 1,000 people a day, are being registered in this way. Much of this is to do with depression and anxiety. Surely, for many of these people, getting back to work might actually be a cure.
Well, while we're sort of sharing figures with your viewers, the figure I'd like to share is that there are 5 million disabled people working today in the labour market, contributing. And in fact, it was only last year that the government gave itself a pat on the back for getting 1.3 million more disabled people into work. So I think we need some perspective on this. Now, I'm really pleased that you and Mel Stride believe that there should be a safety net for disabled people who genuinely can't work, and we can agree on that.
Yeah.
But what I can't agree on is using measures like tinkering with the work capability assessment to support disabled people into work. Going back to your point about giving people hope and changing mindsets, there's lots of ways to do that. You can provide targeted employment support. You can make the access to work scheme work. At the moment, there's 14-week delay. You can implement the Equality Act so that employers have to make reasonable adjustments. The government has got an array of levers it could use, but why is it choosing to, if you like, put disabled